Unwell.
Me too.
Our story begins with the classic monster movies of the 1930s.
With films such as Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde,
Dracula,
Frankenstein,
The Invisible Man,
Werewolf in London, The Walking Dead, The Human Monster.
All of these films are based around the so-called monsters who had been created by terrifying scientific discoveries or revived from gothic horror novels of the 19th century.
At this point of the century, the public still mostly feared the outcasts of society and those who were speculated to be the Antichrist, as a great deal of the Western world were of Christian belief.
We now turn to the horror movies of the 1940s, starting with
Dr. Cyclops, The Black Cat,
The Wolfman,
Cat People,
Dead Men Walk, The Seventh Victim,
House of Horrors,
The Creeper.
Horror films of the 1940s started to move away from the focus of a single monster and address more to the likes of zombies, hauntings and mysterious objects.
These films began to move the terror away from remote places like castles and science labs and moving them closer to home by setting them in towns and cities today.
The Holocaust was quite a big inspiration to horror directors of the 1940s, as it was a terrifying example of real-life horror.
Moving on to the 1950s.
The Thing from Another World,
House of Wax.
The Creature from the Black Lagoon,
Them.
It Came from Beneath the Sea, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, The Blob, House on Haunted Hill.
A lot of the horror films of the 1950s were based around the monster and alien invasions, echoing the events of the Second World War. A horror director named William Castle used a range of theatre gimmicks, such as the Tingler, in which the cinema seats would jolt or shock the audience in their seats.
1960s.
Ghosts,
Psycho.
The Pit of the Pendulum, The Day of the Triffids, Black Sabbath, The Haunting, Chamber of Horrors, Rosemary's Baby, Scream and Scream Again.
What film?
The 1970s.
I thought you were film.
Adam, shut up.
The Wicker Man.
It's alive.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Jaws. Carrie.
Omen.
The Hills Have Eyes.
The Amityville Horror.
1970s films continued to play on the idea that the monster could be the loved one, with such films as The Exorcist and The Omen.
Directors chose to keep the blood and gore to a minimum, whilst others used excessive amounts of blood for added effect.
The Changeling.
The Fog.
The Evil Dead, Reanimator, Hellraiser,
Child's Play.
By the 80s, horror presented itself in many different forms.
A lot of directors of this time chose to show all the blood and gore on screen with the aid of terrifyingly shameful prosthetics and special effects. However, the monsters were now far more nightmarish and supernatural than before.
90s and early noughties brought along films such as Scream and The Blair Witch Project, in which the characters were aware of the horror aspect of the situation, and the monsters became
Much faster and more gory, bringing along a whole new level in horror films. That's it.
Thank you.
Booba Chuba.